Watch for the lights. We're underway in the Tissot Superpole race. Another strong start from Jonathan Rea. He'll have the inside run down towards turn number 1. Good start as well from Toprak Razgatlioglu, moving swiftly through on Scott Redding, who's dropped as far as 4th position and maybe even 5th position now in the early stages. Very wide out at the back one of the Hondas, and that's Leon Haslam pushed aside. Alvaro Bautista making up a position and moving ahead of his teammate. Disastrous start for all of the red bikes, frankly, as Scott Redding finds himself pushed aside. It's Jonathan Rea who leads us then, ahead of Toprak Razgatlioglu in 2nd. Tom Sykes has been relegated down to 3rd. Michael van der Mark looking to the inside of him here, not quite for the moment at least. Loris Baz is next in line, then it's Scott Redding and Alex Lowe's in 7th position. So a lead group of 7 that has already started to break away ever so slightly.
Yeah, Baz making a great start there from the 3rd row of the grid. Nicely into place into turn 1. He was actually the reason why Haslam got pushed out wide, but another good start for Baz. Let's see if he can stay in this group, particularly when they get onto the start-finish straight.
Razgatlioglu versus Rea, the reigning champion versus the young pretender and the championship leader. And it's Jonathan Rea who's come out of the box fighting here today. There was no doubt about it. You would have put him down as the favourite before we got underway. Determined after his disappointment here yesterday. And it's Rea who holds the advantage at the front of the field.
Yeah, Rea's going to be out trying to make amends for what happened in yesterday's race. You can see Toprak behind him on the number 54 plate, just trying to make sure he's able to stay with Jonathan Rea. This 10-lap race really is a case of trying to see exactly how hard you're able to go in the early stages. Already that leading group, you can see 8 riders starting to separate themselves out.
Razgatlioglu into the slipstream of Jonathan Rea as they head down the Gardner Straight and back into turn number 1 for the 2nd time. Razgatlioglu's always brave on the brakes there. He can't quite get to Jonathan Rea on this occasion. Meanwhile, towards the back of the field, we're down to 15 contenders, although Federico Caricasulo, after going down, has now rejoined following a turn 10 incident.
Yeah, Caricasulo had made a good start. He was running inside the top 10 positions there in the early doors, but unfortunately for him, down at turn 10.
As we watch Tom Sykes getting very close to Toprak Razgatlioglu, and Michael van der Mark might go 3 abreast here, looking to the inside line. They're all swapping and changing. Sykes cuts to the inside. Van der Mark has to move to the outside line, goes the long way round, now makes himself vulnerable to Loris Baz. Almost there, Van der Mark had 3rd position, but just as likely he could have dropped to 5th place. Meanwhile, Scott Redding cuts through on the inside. 2 for 1 for Redding, fighting back now as he comes through. Having been relegated down to 6th place, he recovers P4.
Yeah, fantastic move by Redding. You can see Van der Mark runs a little bit wide. That's going to open the door for Loris Baz to get through, but a great move from Redding. Opportunistic there, picks off 2 riders at once.
Bautista down. Alvaro Bautista is down at turn number 6, and disaster for the Spaniard once again in 2020.
Yeah, and for Bautista, he raced really well yesterday to just manage his tyre, come through the pack. But unfortunately for him in the Superpole race, he's down and out. You just look at the left-hand side, he loses that very early in the corner as well. Typically for Bautista, he brakes very early on the run into 6 to try and let him open the gas really early, mid-corner to set up the exit. Maybe just getting on the gas a little bit too early there for Bautista, but it looks like he lost that very early in the corner.
Redding is on a charge. Scott Redding moves past Tom Sykes and up into 3rd position. It's now Rea, Razgatlioglu, Redding, Sykes and Baz. Baz all over the back of Sykes. Disaster further down the order for the Honda men, but a disaster over the last few turns for Michael van der Mark as well. He's been pushed down to 7th place now.
Yeah, van der Mark just getting pushed to the back of that group. The key thing is who's able to turn their tyres on nice and early in this race. That's what we're seeing from Toprak, Jonathan Rea, Scott Redding as well. They're all able to get up to speed very quickly.
Baz diving down the inside of Tom Sykes for 4th position, shuffles him out of the way. That's going to enable van der Mark to make back another position, and sticking with them is Alex Lowe's as well. Tom Sykes then pushed to the back of that group. We saw this from Tom Sykes yesterday. He led for around about just under half of race number 1 before being pushed back. He hasn't led for as long as that this time around, of course. He was blitzed into turn number 1. We see the remounted Alvaro Bautista just being lapped there by the front runners. The contrast compared to his 2019 fortunes couldn't be much more stark as Scott Redding homes in on Razgatlioglu and Rea. Sykes at the back of a lead group of 7 riders.
This is just the move for Loris Baz, just barging down the inside of Tom Sykes, pushing Sykes wide. That's what opens the door then for van der Mark to recover. Van der Mark now up into P5, so recovering well, and that's what the key thing is in this Superpole race. You're going to have a yo-yo here in Phillip Island. The key thing is to always be able to bounce back.
Scott Redding has already worked his way through from 6th position. He wants to have a go at Razgatlioglu here into turn number 1. Toprak himself close to the tail of Jonathan Rea. New fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 30.684 from Redding last time around. You can see that he's leaving the pack behind him now. Loris Baz in 4th position, Van der Mark and Lowe's close to him, and then somewhat isolated now behind is Tom Sykes.
Yeah, and what we're going to see from the Yamaha is Toprak really strong through turn 3, but Jonathan Rea is strong in the brakes down in towards turn 1. It's all about putting yourself into a position to try and attack Jonathan Rea. If you're Toprak, you can
Redding diving down the inside. Oh, collides with Jonathan Rea as they come out of turn number 4. He's got past Razgatlioglu. He couldn't muscle Rea out of the way.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you're Toprak, you've got to wait for your opportunity, see if something presents itself. Scott Redding immediately presented something for himself, just able to slip through, and Toprak contact there with Jonathan Rea as well. This is the move down in towards turn 4. Scott Redding on the red bike, number 45. He's just going to notice that the door opens, slide it down the inside, and then holding his line, has to step up a little bit, but able to at least make sure that all those riders stay in the lead group. Jonathan Rea, this 10-lap race really is a case of trying to see exactly how hard you're able to go in the early stages. Already that leading group, you can see 8 riders starting to separate themselves out.
Razgatlioglu into the slipstream of Jonathan Rea as they head down the Gardner Straight and back into turn number 1 for the second time. Razgatlioglu's always brave on the brakes there. He can't quite get to Jonathan Rea on this occasion. Meanwhile, towards the back of the field, we're down to 15 contenders, although Federico Caricasulo, after going down, has now rejoined following a turn 10 incident.
Yeah, Caricasulo had made a good start. He was running inside the top 10 positions there in the early doors, but unfortunately for him, down at turn 10.
As we watch Tom Sykes getting very close to Toprak Razgatlioglu, and Michael Van der Mark might go 3 abreast here, looking to the inside line. They're all swapping and changing. Sykes cuts to the inside. Van der Mark has to move to the outside line, goes the long way round, now makes himself vulnerable to Loris Baz. Almost there, Van der Mark had 3rd position, but just as likely he could have dropped to 5th place. Meanwhile, Scott Redding cuts through on the inside. 2 for 1 for Redding, fighting back now as he comes through. Having been relegated down to 6th place, he recovers P4.
Yeah, fantastic move by Redding. You can see Van der Mark runs a little bit wide. That's